Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Ben Crossman, and everyone out there, hey, how you doing? Thank you so much for tuning in. We have a great show planned for you with none other than TechGuide.org's own Mike Cermak. He's a longtime correspondent here on the program, longer than even me, but yeah, hey, it's always going to be a fun show, and we're going to bring him on in just a moment. But before we do that, a couple of things, including ComputerAmerica.com. That's where you'll find everything, including articles, reviews, show notes, past shows, future shows, podcasts, video archives, audio archives, all that kind of thing. Anything that we do here on Computer America, you can find at ComputerAmerica.com. I should also probably mention, check out our social media, all other social media accounts at Computer America, until we decide that, hey, you know, it's I don't know what would make me actually delete the social media accounts, because I mean, luckily, I can safely say, because I'm pretty much the one who runs them, Computer America has not participated in any disinformation campaigns. But at the same time, we've talked about the dangers of social media. We have a whole show on it that we did back in, I want to say, May of this year. And I don't know, social media is one of those things where it's a really good thing to connect with people, but it's a really bad thing. So I don't know, but hey, until we make that decision, at Computer America, wherever social media you may use. Okay, so all that being said, welcome into the program again. Hopefully you're doing well here at the studio. I know that, you know, talking about the weather is very cliche. I just have to say that why the heck is it 20 degrees above normal? The polar bears around me are screaming. It's not right. Now, with that being said, let's go ahead and continue on with today's show. And as I said before, today's guest is none other than Mike Cermak. TechGuide.org, check it out. They are the official tech support forums of Computer America. Whenever people have problems that we can't help with, or they just kind of want opinions and things like that, that for some reason they don't trust me, we're always sure to direct them to the fine folks. Not just Mike, but his entire community over there with a lot of great moderators and just other community members. TechGuide.org. So, Mike, welcome back on to Computer America. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
Obviously, you know about the mayhem that was going on behind the scenes. It's stressful when the quality of your day is measured in seconds and not hours. Boy, but
you got it up and running though. Look at you.
I know. We're all good. We're all set up. Yeah, and like you know what?
Well-oiled machine.
Exactly, and gosh darn it, we're gonna have a good show. So, before we get started, again, just how is everything with you? How's everything with Tech Guide? Going well?
Everything is great. Yes, I cannot complain. Everyone's doing well. Although I agree with you, we are melting. We've got our second summer even up here in Pennsylvania. It's getting a little bit too warm for my taste.
Crazy,
I'm
right?
Looking forward to maybe the seasons will change eventually. It is October.
Well, and of course, in some of the Rocky states, I want to say like Montana, I think it was in the news, where they got like 5 feet of snow, which is like the earliest record for that amount of snow. So some places are just getting, torrential snow, and other places are sweltering. And boy, are the next 20 to 50 to 100 years going to be fun. But we did not come here to talk about climate change. We came to talk about how to prevent it. And actually, that's my best way to kind of segue into the first topic that you sent here. You sent over a list of different topics, and we're going to be adding in our own as well. But that was my best way to try to introduce.
I love it. That worked perfect.
Yeah, this one, and all that. of course, saving the planet is one thing.
So I am big into that. I am, which is not super popular in this rural part of Pennsylvania, but I'm into the environmental thing. I've got my electric car, as everybody knows who listens to the show. I've got solar panels on my roof here and at my office. I'm into that. And so I had an issue. I assume the story that you want to touch on is the water heater.
Exactly. And by the way, just just as kind of our kind of preempt into it, years ago when we went to CES, and by the way, we are totally planning on going to CES this year. But last time we went to CES, like one of the biggest segments that we noticed, because it was all about kind of like that was in the Internet of Things, was just kind of really starting, and one of the most popular things to actually mix technology with were basic household appliances, and I just have to say that the advancement of everything from water heaters, ACs, dishwashers, that kind of thing, they're advancing very, very fast. But you wanted to talk about something called a heat pump, which I don't think I've ever heard of either.
Yes, so the Internet of Things is happening, but this particular water heater actually isn't even connected to the internet. So it has that capability, but it's an add-on. But what fascinated me about this is what happened is my water heater went out. I have an electric water heater at my home. My home is now 15 years old, which means all of the appliances are now all breaking at exactly the same time, and we had to get and we recently, by the way, I should mention, speaking of Internet of Things, we just recently replaced the washer and dryer, which are now connected to the Wi-Fi. And whenever I'm at work and my wife is at home and doing laundry, I get alerts on my phone that the washer's done and the dryer's done. and I feel like I'm getting something done even when I'm not at home. But they don't do much good without water heater. So the water heater went out, and we do not have gas here, so we have just electric. So I've looked into instant water heaters, but that's not so great for if you don't have gas. And so I thought, well, we're just going to have to get another regular old-fashioned electric water heater, just like everyone's used for decades. But then I come to find out there's a new type of electric water heater called a heat pump water heater, or a hybrid water heater. And basically what it is, most people are familiar with heat pumps that sit outside of your house that work similar to an air conditioner. It uses compressed gas to move heat or cool from one side to the other. And so a lot of houses, especially in this part of the country, have heat pumps that in the winter generate heat for the house and in the winter generate cool for the house. Down in your area, you may not have so much need for that. I don't know. But it's essentially the same idea, but there's nothing that sits outside. If you look at it, it looks like a water heater, except it's got this little unit attached to the top of it with a fan on it, which is just a little heat pump. And so it uses that same technology, which apparently is much more efficient than just heating up some rods, to be able to get the heat out of the air in the room where the water heater exists and put it into the water, which fascinates me to no end. The sticker on the side of it, my old water heater, we got rid of it. It said that it uses it on average would cost $260 a year to operate,
right.
And the new one is $114 a year, which is not insignificant. Especially if you multiply that across a lot of people. Yeah, it's fascinating to me. It's that kind of technology that it never would have occurred to me to use in that sort of you don't think of things like that.
So I want to recant my previous statement where I said I had never heard of one of these. Turns out that actually, the home that I'm living in now, completely against my will because it came with the house, but they actually installed back in the mid 2000s, and it was probably much more unheard of back then, a geothermal heat
Yes,
pump.
Even more efficient.
Yeah, well, yes and no. Probably by now, 15 years later, they probably are very good and they're very efficient. Back then, they were just expensive. They're really not.
I think they're still that, though.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. But the one that I have experience with, I mean, really. The ideal end result of any kind of heat pump, any kind of system, is that you would not know the difference between a heat pump and a water heater. It's just that one is going to be much more efficient, and it's not going to blow up and explode your house. So
it's always a benefit of any appliance.
Ideally, I wouldn't do that. So, but all this, and you also mentioned, I think you said like $500 that's your power company, kind of gave to you.
Yes, that's how I found out about it. Is that the power company has a instant rebate on it of $500 if I went with this hybrid one, and it was just a no-brainer for me.
Yeah, and I think that's the best part about the kind of eco movement, or things that are good for efficiency and reducing power usage, and really the core tenets of reducing your impact on the environment. The other side impact, and probably one that would get people much more interested, is that it's just going to cost you less. Like, it's going to save you money.
Yes,
it's just
right.
you got to be able to put it up front, and that shock.
It's weird. I'm looking forward to my next couple of electric bills to try to see if I can detect the difference. Isn't that?
Yeah. Well, that's a very, very nerdy way to go about it.
That's definitely a sign that I'm getting old.
And of course, so the installation really wasn't all that complicated. Like, they had it done in a relatively quick amount of time.
We did it ourselves. My father's an electrician, so it was just a matter of, disconnecting, turn off the breaker, disconnect the power going to the old one, drag it out of the house, drag the new one in, put power to it, and it was up and running. Yeah, it was.
Oh.
I mean, I won't say there was nothing to it because I'm not a plumber, so that part gave me more trouble than the electrical part. But yeah, it was not bad at all, and there was just nothing to it. And because it is all just one unit, when I first heard heat pump water heater, I imagined just like my actual heat pump for the AC, that it sits outside and it'll be a big thing to install. But no, it was nothing. I've been very, very excited about it, and we use an awful lot of hot water, so I think that while the old one estimated $260 some a year, I suspect we were paying much more than that, because we have 3 kids who like to get baths, strangely, and we go through a lot of hot water. So I think the savings for us will be even more than what it shows.
Yeah, and I got to say that the heat pump has served us well for a decade and a half. I think though,
and one of the things this does have also, by the way, speaking of Internet of Things and all that, it does support being connected to the internet and being able to connect to some electrical supply companies, not mine in this area, but in many areas, they charge. Your rate that you pay for electricity varies by time of day and by usage,
right.
by demand, charged by demand. We don't have that up here yet. We barely have electricity up here. But in areas that do that, you can, set your water heater to communicate with the electric company and decide when to turn on and heat and when to go into super efficient mode and make smart changes like that, which is pretty cool too.
Yeah, that's and talking with certain companies like Bosch and other ones that are really working with not just companies and not just with individuals, but with entire municipalities, and like that's going to be really where the energy of the future kind of heads, is that it's not really about completely replacing the energy grid as we know it. It's going to be a more efficient use of the grid,
making a much smarter grid.
Yeah,
and that's something people are always worried about with electric cars. But the nice thing with that is that in general, electric cars are charging at your house at night when the grid is sitting mostly idle.
Yeah,
it's one of those things where and anyhow, that's a fascinating area all by itself.
That and looking at things like the Tesla Powerwall, which doesn't get as much publicity as it does when it first came out. But yeah, all that stuff. But I did want to say that I think I'd actually be interested in comparing getting a more modern, efficient heat pump in the house that I live in versus, I'm sure that you've heard of tankless water heaters.
Yes, that's the instant water heater we refer to them as here. But yes, but the problem with those, unless you're doing just a sink or something, they generally have to have a good fuel source like gas or propane or something like that.
Really?
And here with just electric, it can't handle running multiple showers at the same time if it's just running on electric. It's just so that's a major limitation of them right now, from my understanding.
That's unfortunate, because that's what I was kind of banking on to get rid of that system. But but that's
we have that in one of our offices, and it works really well. They've got gas there, but it works really nicely. But
probably for like a sink or something, right?
Yeah, so, well, in the office, you're not pulling that much hot water at any given moment. Not a lot of people taking a shower there, so not as much of an issue. And who knows, maybe they have more efficient ones, or maybe they will have more efficient ones in the future. But
Right.
from my cursory, and I'm not an expert in this area, but I just learned about this technology and just felt like I had to share it. It just fascinated me.
No, absolutely, and definitely enjoy talking about that kind of thing because I run into it where I myself kind of get caught up in the stuff that I talk about here on the show, where I talk about the latest iPhone. I talk about the just the last week we talked about new Wi-Fi, and I'm sure that you would have been interested in this show because I'm sure that you caught it last Monday. But last Monday we talked about Wi-Fi spectrum splitting, which is a whole new kind of standard that they're trying to push with their own chipset for routers and things like that. So, but like talking about that kind of technology is one thing, and then I go out in the world and I talk to not Luddites but just average people, and they're like
normal people.
Yeah, normal people, and they're just like, so tell me about this Bitcoin. What is it? And I'm just like. Like they are years behind the conversations that we're having on the show, and their knowledge of just kind of more basic parts of technology is more typical. So talking about a wide range of products, including just general consumer stuff like heat pumps, completely applicable to the show. I know that you're worried about that, so I'm happy to talk about that kind of thing.
I always send some topics over to Ben and let him know here's some things that are on my mind, and I mentioned this because it was fascinating to me, and it does connect to the internet, so it is kind of. But I said I don't know if this is computer related enough for Computer America,
but
I just find it fascinating. So good, I'm glad.
It is. So with that topic behind us, everyone check out heat pumps. But now the second one, and by the way, we're going to have a link to the Energy Saver Energy Star program, I'm sure, with heat pumps. But this next one, and you're right, last month I do recall talking about your new smartwatch, and it looks like you were having some problems, if I'm reading this right.
I was very excited. I had held off for a long time for getting a smartwatch. I'm not a big fan of watches, but I finally felt I want to be cool, so I need to get one. And I'm an Android kind of guy. I don't hate Apple, but I have an Android phone, and so it made sense to get a Wear OS device. And I've got it. I did a bunch of research, figured out which one I wanted. I ended up getting the Skagen Falster 2. Skagen's not a real well-known watch, at least in my mind, maybe to some people who are fancier than I am. And just as soon as I bought it, of course, they come up with a new version, right? Isn't that the way it always works? So a month after I buy mine, the new one comes out. Skagen, by the way, is a subsidiary. Sorry, my tongue twisted here. Fossil. They're owned by Fossil, which is a much more well-known brand in my mind. So Fossil just released about a month or two ago their new Gen 5 Wear OS smartwatches, which are getting great reviews. They have 1 gigabyte of RAM on the watch versus the 512 that any previous Wear OS devices had. And apparently that makes a world of difference. It also has a newer CPU on it that's a little bit more efficient for certain things, but it's not really any faster. It's just a little bit more efficient at in terms of battery life. But the big thing is the RAM. And so it's been getting great reviews. But sadly, the Gen 4 was kind of well known for issues with the charging apparatus on the phone. So, I mean, on the wristwatch. So the way these devices charge, including the watch I have and the Gen 4s and the Gen 5s, all of these Fossil-based SmartOS watches have 2 little rings on the back of them, 2 little metal rings, and you place them on a charger, and it charges through that. It's not wireless charging. They're actually making contact on these wireless rings, which is more efficient, and arguments can be made back and forth on why they do that.
Right.
But the problem is that these little wireless rings are glued onto the back of the watch, and the glue is failing over time, and not over much time. The Gen 4s, there's oodles of pictures on Reddit of these contacts coming off of the back of the watch and having to be sent in for warranty. And I thought, oh, what a shame. And so I got the Skagen one, and within a month, mine did the same thing. And I'm like, son of a... So I don't have my watch on right now. It is at the Fossil repair facility in Texas right now as we speak, and getting the rings glued back on the back, which hopefully will last for more than a month. Yeah. But the real sad thing is the new Gen 5s that just came out a month or two ago, people are already reporting exactly the same problem on those. And so this is kind of the big talk in Reddit right now of Wear OS
Yeah.
is and other Wear OS communities is the Gen 5 watches that everyone is all hyped about has this exact same design flaw in it or manufacturing flaw, whichever, as the Gen 4s did that they were so well known. It's a real shame.
Yeah, there and to tie this into another article that I read, I think. Well, actually, I don't think I got to it on the show, but I was researching it a couple of days ago, and it looks like the rules for the European Union, they are taking a hardline stance against planned obsolescence, where appliances have to last for at least 10 years. There have to be like 10-year warranties from the manufacturer. The manufacturer
10
of
years.
these, yeah, 10 years. Like everyone says that, back in the, I don't know, let's just say back in the 1620s, whenever they made the first refrigerators, they used to last forever. The parts were well made. Everything was steel instead of glue. Everything was.
You actually get replacement parts.
Yeah, and that's the thing.
To be repaired, not to be thrown out.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like also with the legislation in the EU, they also say that if you make a product, you have to make repair parts for that product for 10 years into the future. You can't just make the appliance and then stop making all the parts, and then people have to go to third parties. You have to produce it. So the European Union is taking a hardline stance against planned obsolescence, which really I'm sure that you've noticed in your line of work, and definitely with what I do, because sometimes we take apart phones and things like that. Phones, smartwatches, a lot of technology is put together with a lot of plastic, a lot of glue instead of screws and metal. These things are just not designed to last very long, and that's at the detriment of really the consumer. Yeah,
that's true. That's true. So, and it's interesting, though, because there's obviously different qualities of it, right? I mean, the adhesive that keeps my phone together here, I have a Pixel 2 in my hand at the moment, and it is largely held together by adhesive. It's if you need to get inside of it, you basically have to break the screen off of the front. It's almost impossible to do without damaging, as are a lot of phones these days. But if they can do that, you'd think they'd be able to figure out a way to keep some metal attached to the back of the watch to... I don't know. It doesn't seem like, and the thing that's shocking the most to me is that this is such a well-known problem for the past year or two, and to not address it. I mean, to have brand new Gen 5 watches out and they're 5 weeks old, and having exactly the same problem, it's just unacceptable.
Yeah, it's I think even Apple, even after they came out with their 4GS and, they said that you're holding it wrong, it's not our antenna, at least in their next iteration of phones, they changed the placement of the antenna. So you should change manufacturing processes that aren't working. And, I mean, although at the same time, I don't know how much Fossil really has to lose in this market, or with these wearable watches, because I know that they make watches and Fossil's well known for all kinds of watches, but as far as smartwatches go, I don't know how big of a portion of their revenue really kind of comes from them. Like, I don't know. I don't know if it would have been worth it for them to really fix the problem that you're talking about,
Well, I don't know either. I wonder how much it's costing them to fix all of the watches that are going into repair, though. I mean, it's...
Yeah. They're and to be clear, I mean, these things are not like your average Fitbit. Like, these things are not like $60-$70. Like, they're I'm on the website now and I'm looking at, I think they're like $230 or something like that per watch, or
depending on which model you get. It can be anywhere from $200 to $300.
Yeah, which again, you should expect a level of quality, and I'm glad that they're at least accepting shipments and they're going to be fixing them, although like most technology we complain about, they shouldn't have to be fixed in the first place. So
right. So then I'm worried when I get mine back and I get to wear it, is it going to last for a couple of months, or as soon as it goes out of warranty here, am I going to be, SOL and having to buy the Gen 6?
You might know this. I think it's the publication, website. They make videos and they have mailers and things like that. I think it's the publication iFixit. And they do teardowns of all of your favorite products. Like that's something that I always look for when a new product comes out, is the iFixit teardown, to see how much glue, and really they give it a score for repairability. And, like they've said, like they're always shocked when stuff, advances a year, like a new version comes out and something is more repairable than it was the previous year, because that's just not the trend.
That's correct. Yep.
So
and there's a lot of reasons for that. It's not just manufacturers being jerks or being lazy. I mean,
it's more
people
complicated.
want thinner and thinner phones, and they want them to last, have a bigger and bigger battery in them, and they want them to be, lighter and lighter. And you can't do all of that thing and have it held together by a bezel with screws. Like, there's limitations.
Yeah.
But so I'm not trying to throw them all under the bus, but when you have a clear flaw in design or manufacturing, it's just sad to see it.
Before we get into some of our other news and just cursory glance here, which I was 99% sure that you didn't. There was a story this last Friday, that's when it was, about Elon Musk and the researchers he's paying, and admittedly this is probably like a press release, but anyways, they're saying that one of the best lithium scientist in the market, and this is just idle chit chat. One of the best lithium scientists, kind of working on research, said that he had improved the, I guess the capacity by changing from lithium ion to lithium calcium, I want to say, and he was able to really by capacity, it should have read something like durability. He was able to get batteries to go from 500,000 life cycles before they failed, which is your typical lithium-ion battery. And using lithium calcium again, I think he was able to get it up to 1 million cycles. So he was able to double the lifespan of batteries. And so Elon Musk, of course, he put out about it. They do work for him, but he's hoping that when they get the battery plant up and running, for Tesla's products, they're hoping to put this new technology in it, and hopefully, Tesla cars and the power walls and all that kind of thing. They're hoping that will be the new battery, kind of revolution, where batteries are going to have to be replaced half as often, which is kind of the big news there.
Absolutely. Well, and that's what we, need in order to continue to go down this electric, road that we are, is batteries that last longer and longer. I mean, fortunately, lithium-ion batteries are pretty recyclable, so even when they do fail, it's not like they're just thrown in a landfill like some things. But still, to put that off as long as possible is really valuable. Yeah,
and I guess that's part of the equation that I just want to turn everyone on to, is that it's not so much about capacity, because as far as I understand it, lithium ion, the reason that you haven't really had all that many, quantum leaps in battery technology, I think you get back like 99.99% of the electricity you put into a lithium ion battery, you can then discharge it, whenever you need it. So there's not too much more efficient ways to store and get your energy back, but the improvement here is, again, not having to throw away your batteries, which is pretty big. So there's that one, and let's see. You reminded me of it, and by the way, we're going to talk about this, and then we're probably going to go to break, and
sure,
blah blah blah. But you mentioned Google Pixel 2, right? Okay.
Yes.
Google.
I have a Pixel 2 XL in my hand right now.
Google Pixel. Well, put that down. You're on the show. But Google Pixel 4, I believe, will be unveiled, and I'm going to do a quick Google search. Hopefully, I didn't turn on anyone's devices. I should probably stop saying that word. The Pixel 4, I think, is going to be unveiled the 15th of October.
I think that's right.
I've been with iPhone for so long. I've looked at Samsung phones and other. I think LG has some really great phones too. But I think if I can just hold on a little bit longer, I want to see what the Google Pixel 4 is.
Ooh,
and
interesting.
I kind of want to
go to continue this conversation.
Yeah, and we have like another minute or so left. But I'm thinking about the Pixel 4, and as someone who has made the leap, I don't have a Mac. I don't really use iTunes. I don't have all that many applications that I'm really tied into with Apple. Like, I feel like I'm a good candidate to make the swap,
Yes, that makes a lot of sense to me.
So
I'm a big fan of it. I mean, you can't deny the quality of the Google Pixel, and especially when it comes to the camera. That was one of the things that sold me on it. But I've always been an Android guy, but the biggest thing with the Google Pixel line is that it's just straight Android. It doesn't have all that extra junk on it that you get from the other manufacturers.
Yeah.
And you get quick updates whenever there's a new version of Android. I got Android 10, as soon as it came out.
Yeah, I had heard about some of the other bloatware that they put on there that you cannot remove, even from the likes of Samsung or LG or some of those other companies. Mike, we're actually going to go to break here in just a moment. Everyone, thank you for tuning into Computer America. Music is playing oh so softly in the background. We have been talking to Mike Cermak, techguy.org. Again, give it a check if you want to, if you want to learn something, if you want to ask something, if you want to find something out. Or if you just want to hang out, highly recommend techguy.org. And in the meantime, we will be right back. More Computer America right after this. Everyone, stay tuned.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
800-215-4461. 800-215-4461. 800-215-4461. That's 800-215-4461.
We are all Brother Wolf. 10 years ago, a group of locals banded together to create positive change. We took animals into our homes, held adoption events at local retailers, and talked to the community about our mission to help build a no-kill Asheville. A decade later, we have achieved so many victories for animals in need. There's been so much progress, yet there's still so much to do. As part of our year-long celebration, we encourage you to become a member of our special Compassionate Circle program. With a monthly donation of $10 or more, you will have behind-the-scenes access to the work we are doing at Brother Wolf. Our goal is to reach 1,000 members because we receive no government funding. Working together, we can help build and sustain no-kill communities. Learn more at compassionatecircle.bwar.org. We are a 501c3 tax-deductible organization.
And welcome back to the Computer America Show. It is 32 minutes past the hour as we continue on here. And everyone, thank you for, if you're just tuning in, thank you for tuning in. If you have been with us for the whole show as we talk with Mike Cermak, it's been a great show. And, thank you for tuning in. If you missed any part of the show, though, wherever podcasts are heard after the program, we're going to upload it and you're going to be good to go. Be it Apple Podcasts or Google Play, which I think Google Play is actually going away. They're doing it in favor of YouTube Music. I think they're doing it. I have to double check that. But I think they're in. But wherever podcasts are heard, you can hear Computer America. Go there, check it out. Now we continue on. Mike, thank you for continuing on with us. And yeah, just before the break, we were just starting to get into my own idols, speculation that I might be getting a Google Pixel 4 as opposed to the new iPhone because I saw the presentation. I think the photos look great. I think that Apple knows how to sell Apple products. But overall, Apple has been so not that surprising to me, or just so not that, I'm not enraptured by Apple, that I think it left the door in my mind open to something else. And I feel like the Pixel 4, I'm shocked that Google made it past the Pixel 1 or even the Pixel 2, because usually they kill hardware like it's some kind of trophy. Like there's some executive with just dead Google products on their wall, like hunting trophies. I'm really interested in the Pixel 4. So I'm glad to hear that you like your 2. Mike, are you there? Or did I lose you?
How about now?
Oh, I can hear you now. There we go.
Sorry about that. Technology. So, what pulls you the most toward Pixel 4 versus something else? What? I'm just curious as to what excites you the most about it. I think it's clearly the right choice, but I'm just curious.
I think you're absolutely right, but why are you right? You sound like my math teacher. Show your work, Ben. Show your work.
Show me your work.
And really, it's just some of the rumors because year over year, Apple increases everything by 15%. 15% more megapixels, 15% faster processor, 15% better screen, 15% better battery life. Everything's just that little much better, but nothing's really amazing about the new iPhone. But so these are all rumors. None of these are confirmed, but I'm looking at the 9 to 5 Google, and they say that the display will be. I'm probably going to get the XL. This is just the regular Pixel, but 5.7 inch 90 hertz display. I think it's pretty standard. Snapdragon 855, which is the fastest Snapdragon, so it's going to be speedy. 6 gigs of RAM, which I think is like the some of the best I've ever heard on a phone before. 6 is pretty good for a phone. Yeah, and then of course the battery life should be around 3,500 on the XL. I mean, really to me, it just seems like the camera, which they said it should have DSLR-like photos with motion blur and motion mode, like being able to have more advanced control.
Devices are pretty well known for their cameras. I mean, that's what I'm hoping for. Pretty amazing cameras.
That's what I'm hoping for. Is not just a camera, and Apple showed off a bit of this, but not just a camera, but being able to, I guess, play with the controls of the camera a bit more, which I'm hoping Google will let you do. So that.
Well, and the nice thing with the open, the Android operating system, for lack of a better word, is a lot more open in general. So even if you can't within the default app, I'm sure there's going to be a lot more third-party apps that give you more options.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, it looks like a really neat device. I love the Pixel. I've had the Pixel 2. This is actually my third Pixel 2 XL that I have here. I've broken 2 of them, where I've had a nephew break one for me, but I love them so much. And I bought whenever the Google Pixel 3 came out, about, I don't know, when was it, a year or so ago? Maybe more, maybe 2 years. Whenever the Pixel 3 came out, I was right on the edge of getting it. And that's when I was actually working with a broken Pixel 2 XL and waited for that announcement. And I was just kind of underwhelmed by it. I mean, it's a great phone. It's got a little bit better camera than my 2 does. Yeah. But overall, there's not really enough of a difference between the 2 and the 3 for me to pony up the extra couple $100 to upgrade. And I was like, I can get a slightly used 2XL for nothing compared to a new 3, and that's what I ended up doing, and I've been very happy with it. But my next one will probably be a 4. But it's just I'm been very pleased with the line. I think that they're solid hardware. It's a great user interface.
How are the
it's
speakers?
Just the experience on it. The speakers are great. It's got, at least with the 2. Pardon me, I think this is still the same, or expected to be the same in the 4, is that it's got stereo speakers at the top and bottom. It is, supposed to be waterproof. I forget what IP rating it is, or down to what level. But obviously, if they get a little bit of moisture in the speakers, then they sound like crap. I mean, it's just the nature of the beast.
Yeah, but that's just,
And the thing that will probably drive you crazy, of course, is you're going to have to get new dongles and power chargers for everything.
Luckily, I only have the one cable, and it's actually cracked.
One cable? How do you live with one cable for your phone?
When it goes dead, I tell everyone I'll see you tomorrow, and then I just, kind of don't have a phone. Very scary world that I live in. But I'm looking, like honestly, as much as I use the iPhone, and I have it right here in my hand. If anyone's watching the video portion, you can see it right there. But as much as I have the iPhone, I'm probably more invested in the whole ecosystem that that Google has built up, between the Gmail, the calendar, all the documents and file storage, things like that. I'm just way more invested in them, so I'm heavily considering it. And then one last thing I wanted to point out, I'm not sure if the 2 has this, but looks like Motion Sense is going to be a new feature that they're going to be adding, where you can kind of wave your hand over the phone and it will do
it does
stuff.
Not have that. The 3 doesn't have that either, as far as I know. I think that's new for the 4.
Yeah, so it will have a new little toy, and who knows? It might be my favorite way of interacting with it. So
It sounds kind of lame to me. I don't know. I can't imagine myself standing there waving my hand a couple inches above the screen to make it do things. But the same thing could have been said for all of these assistants. A couple years ago, I couldn't imagine talking to an assistant to do all the things I do today. So who knows? Maybe I'll be convinced.
I'm hoping that I can have it, sitting here while I'm working, and not so much working. Hopefully, while I'm sitting here working and my phone's kind of sitting on my desk, I'm hoping that if I get like a text or something, I can just kind of wave my hand over it, and it will show me the stuff without me having to actually pick it up.
I just imagine you being like, "These are not the droids you were looking for."
Yeah, yes, it'll be more Jedi-esque than what anyone expected. So yeah. And again, that was just kind of idle chit chat. And one last topic before we get on to the actual topics. Someone who listens to the show, they're actually a personal friend. They were looking at a new thermostat, and I want to say it was. You know what? Why not? I'll just say it on the show, and if they want to, come at me, or listen, if they want to come on the show and clear their name, go for it. I would love to have, I believe it's called Sensi, the Sensi Smart Thermostat. Mike, I'm not sure if you've ever had the pleasure of dealing with them.
No, not that one.
SENSI.
I have 3 Nest thermostats, and we'd be happy to talk about those. But I'm not familiar with Sensi. I'm bringing it up now.
Yeah,
Emerson.
the Emerson Sensi Wi-Fi thermostat, and they were looking at
the interface. Looks like it's something straight out of the 80s.
The interface is pretty simplistic. It is a smart thermostat, so it's probably meant to kind of work with your phone more than it is. And again, not the Wi-Fi thermostat, but the smart thermostat. I'm trying to find the exact model that they were looking at. It's more modern looking, but anyways, I was looking at the reviews. I was looking at everything. Everything seemed to be going well. The only problem is, and this is kind of what I look for when I look for the reviews, is that I have nothing against products made in Thailand, China, India. I have nothing against products manufactured overseas and imported to the United States. What I have a problem with is when they don't do good customer support in all the places that they sell. And that seems to be the root of the issue of a lot of the negative reviews of this product, where it's the product works great, everything works fine for a year, so on and so forth, and then something broke and they had to contact the company, and there just was no emphasis on product kind of even though there's like a 5-year warranty, they don't really honor it, or they don't kind of operate with it. So whenever I try to find a product, and especially if it's something that obviously, you mentioned Nest. I'm sure that a lot of people have heard about Nest and Honeywell and a lot of these other smart products, which are, kind of everyday name brands. And then you get into some that are going to be half the price of those name brands, but you've never heard of the company they've come from. Just make sure that they will support your product. It may be cheaper, but it may only last a fifth as long.
Interesting. Well, they've got pretty good, and it seems that the one I was looking at had kind of an old LED display on it. It looks like they do have an LCD touchscreen version as well.
Yeah, that's one that was linked to me that they were looking at.
The names are, I don't know. It's still the Emerson Sensi Wi-Fi smart thermostat.
Well, it's probably the Sensi Pro.
There's a Sensi Pro yet.
Yeah, you have to add the
Pro. Some of these names. This is like Apple right now. Everything's going to be I need a thermostat Pro now if I want to actually be able to control the temperature.
Yeah, I think it's the Pro version that was linked to me, and again, it looks good. It's just the reviews could be better for the support, but for the actual product, people seem to be fairly happy with it. So, read reviews, ask around, talk to people, and see what they're using. So
interesting. I've never heard of these. I'm despite your review, it's kind of interesting to look into.
Well, no, and and I can't emphasize this enough. The reviews are good. People like it. It's just
Yes, I see that.
I've just so often seen products that, people get them, they install them, they use it for 3 months, and they give it a good review. And that's why, at least on Computer America, whenever something breaks or something happens, we try to go back and update our review because, you could be looking at something a year and a half after the review is written, and no one ever goes back and says, 18-month update, it broke. Like, no one ever really cares for the long-term review, It's
Right.
always
Yeah,
the short
you're
term.
right. No one. Yeah, you're absolutely right. That's often the case, and people are so excited when the new device comes out and give like this watch we were talking about, the Gen 5 watch. It's awesome. It runs so great. It's fast. But by the way, after 5 weeks, the charging cable breaks off of it.
I'm sure that people, and you mentioned the four, the Gen 4. I'm sure that people who are looking at, maybe a more cost-effective version of the smartwatch from Fossil, I'm sure people who are, looking at reviews for the Gen 4 smartwatch would appreciate people who went back and edited their reviews to say, oh, by the way, after a year, the ring fell off the back, things like that.
Yeah. Right.
So-
Exactly.
So,
But how
yeah.
many people actually do that?
No
actually
one-
go back
no
and edit.
one
Yeah,
does.
that's right. That's
Yeah.
the problem.
So it's I talk about the only people that actually do are not the reviewers in general, but the people who go out and buy the product, like just the average consumer. They're the ones who come back and say, "Here's the thing," and then they will just blurt it out. And
Right.
So there you go. So and by the way, that was just an aside for for the listener out there. Thank you so much for that. Let's go ahead and continue on. You have a ton of different articles here and really no time, but I've had a lot of fun on the show. Let's talk about, let's see, any of these really you want to, kind of hit first?
Oh boy, good question. I don't know. I don't know if I have a strong opinion on these. Let's talk about passwords. I know it's a boring subject,
That's
but it's an important one.
exactly what I was going to recommend.
Is it really? We have all these kind of more exciting ones, but for me, passwords are so important. I deal with this problem all the time. Which there's actually an interesting story about that I could have mentioned. I might try and weasel it in here, but interesting to geeks like me at least. But so the story is Google wants to warn you if you reuse passwords or use really weak passwords. And not everyone knows what a terrible password is. Some of us do. This article mentions using, ABC123 or 123456. Maybe not a good idea. We all know that. Using password or password one, not a great idea. Using your dog's name or your kid's birthday, not a great idea.
Yeah, and by the way, just to stomp all over you here, we had.
I'm used to it.
Yeah, thank you. We've had a.
I didn't mean you. I just meant in general.
Oh, okay. I feel bad now, but I will say that we covered an article about, let's see, who was it? I think it was DoorDash. DoorDash lost a bunch of private information, not just for people who use the application to order food, but for drivers and for the establishments that work with DoorDash. They all lost their email. I think order histories and delivery addresses were lost and things like that. So that was a whole mess. But the thing is that the article that I read went into a bit about passwords and hash versus hashed insulting,
Yes.
Which sounds like delicious food.
I love it. That's such good stuff. Yes.
Yeah. And they were talking about that, and really the takeaway that the reason why passwords, you don't want to use a very simple one or a very common one, and this is something like I've heard it, I've said it on the show, I've lived the gospel, but I never really understood why. I guess when passwords are hashed or they're converted from Ben is awesome 1 and it's converted to
my password.
I just know. But when it's converted from that phrase to a hash, or it's hashed, it becomes this long string of characters, random, uppercase, lowercase. And what happens is, because you think, oh, they can only try my password 3 times before they're locked out. Instead, they get these master password list of, the 3 billion Yahoo email passwords and the 140 million Equifax passwords and the 5 million Sonic passwords. Anyways, they get all these passwords and they run them through and they just Control F the hashed password, and if any one of those common 3 to 5 billion passwords comes up with the exact same hash, they have your password right there. It's just that easy.
Right. Yeah, and that's exactly it. The important thing here is that there's a lot of things here. So you're exactly right. You don't want to use the same password on multiple websites, and how you not do that is obviously you use a password manager. I don't care if you use 1Password or what are some of the other ones that are out there? Dashlane or LastPass.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of them out there. They're wonderful. Go check those out. They're free demos. You really need to use a password management program these days, because the problem is if you have the same or almost the same password on 10 different websites or 100 different websites, when, not if, but when one of those websites become compromised and their database of passwords gets exposed, then your password is known for everybody. They know that Ben at Computer America's password on this website was Mike is awesome. So now they're going to go to Gmail or to the bank or to PayPal or to Facebook or to wherever and try to log in with those credentials.
Yeah.
And chances are somewhere you've used the same one. The worst case, of course, is if you use the same password for your email as you use for anything else, because once I have access into your email, then I go to Facebook and say, I forgot my password. Drop me an email so I can reset it. I forgot my, and you got everything then. And it's so critical to do that. But so good websites don't know your password, which is what Ben's talking about. Google and Facebook and all these websites, they don't, they shouldn't, and most good ones don't save your password in their database. They save this hash that Ben's talking about. It's an encrypted form of your password that can't be directly unencrypted, at least not without lots and lots and lots of cycles of work to try to brute force it.
Right.
And so when these databases come out, in general, it's not like your password is listed there until someone does a lot of work, or if you have a really simple password.
You would hope that, but more and more, every time we talk about security, I think it was Uber or someone else, like some other company recently had passwords saved on a server in plain text.
Facebook did that recently. Facebook had it.
Facebook did too. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a major issue. But what brings this to light right now is I work with there's a large national nonprofit that everyone here would be familiar with, but I'm not going to outright name because they haven't fixed this issue yet. But I'm a member of this organization. I don't work in their IT stuff, but it came to light that another member of this organization emailed or didn't email. They got an email that said, "Hey, we understand you're having trouble logging in. Here's your password." And it's like, whoa. Like, there's so many problems right here. First of all, that person never asked for their password. Second of all, sending a plain text email with your password is kind of a terrible idea because, by the way, email isn't secure, in case you haven't heard. And third of all, they shouldn't be able to see that. It should be encrypted in their server. They shouldn't even be able to see what the password
plain text,
is.
Yeah.
There's so many problems with that. I was like, what is going on here? I was shocked. Shocked.
My mother, who, she's great. She's a nice lady, but she was never really all that interested in cybersecurity and things like that. But she's an avid listener to the show, and I would say that she was watching something on the Science Channel the other day, and she called me after, during the program, she called me and she said, "So I was watching the Science Channel. They were at some university. They were checking up on how the Bigfoot DNA was coming along, or whatever the Science Channel is pushing nowadays, and they were filming." They were filming the school's computer with with all the stuff, and at the top, right there on national television, was the username, which was supervisor, in all uppercase, and then the password was not even an asterisk out. Like, the password was right there on the TV screen, which was supervisor, all lowercase. And like, it was right there, and they even said it was like the University of blah blah blah. And I was like, okay, so obviously not many people are going to make the drive, go there, find the system, in that network and log in with those credentials, but they just broadcast those really bad credentials, on national television. Like, man, people aren't listening. People aren't listening to us, Mike. What do we do?
You're right, and it was so disheartening when I saw that. It was so frustrating, and the really bad thing is that fellow I was just talking about, he has that same password that he's used on dozens of other websites, and it's like it's just bad security practice all around. You're
so
just ask for trouble.
Google's going to fix it for us, right?
Yes, Google's going to fix it. No, they're really not. They're especially not that back end stuff. But what they're offering now in the as an extension on Google Chrome, and they're talking about possibly adding this as a default feature, is an extension that will check your passwords and warn you. So whenever you go and log in on Facebook, it'll say, "Hey Ben, maybe your password shouldn't just be Mike. Maybe you need a couple digits after that, and punctuation. Yeah, and or if your password has shown up on one of these lists of cracked and hacked passwords, it'll let you know, hey, stop using that one. It's a bad idea, and it's a shame it's come to this point, but that's really where we are.
I will say that Google does have a system in place with Chrome where, you were talking about password managers, and I think they have a built-in one with Chrome nowadays. So,
yes, they do,
yeah.
sort of. So the problem, people need to be aware of this as well. So in Chrome, and I love Google Chrome, that's my go-to browser, but I don't use it to save passwords because it's not stored securely in the browser. I can go to, if you go to your Google Chrome right now and go into settings and view your passwords,
of course.
You can view your passwords. Which is not a good thing. They are not really truly encrypted or secured there. If I sit down in front of anyone's computer, I can view their passwords in Google Chrome, and it's just not a great way to save your passwords in there. It's convenient, and it's better than having the same password on every website, but it's still not as good as using a true password manager. And the other benefit on a real password manager, of course, is then you can have it sync across different types of devices as well. If you have LastPass, 1Password, Dashlane, any of those, put it on your phone, put it on your tablet, put it on your PC, and it does what the browser does, but then it synchronizes it across all of these and has the added benefit of actually being encrypted in there and two-factor authentication to be able to see passwords and all that kind of good stuff.
Right. And you're absolutely right. And I'm actually, luckily not on the screen that everyone can see it, but I'm going through checking out all my passwords, and I need to work on it. But at the very least, it creates this big, long, complicated password, even if they do store it in, right there in the browser. So, okay. So yeah. So was that it about the whole article with Google? Just, they will warn you if it's weak.
Yeah, and or if it's on one of these known lists that it connects out through the API of
Have I been pwned?
Have I been pwned? Right, exactly. Just to check to see if your password, which seems like a great idea. I mean, why not do this? Why not help people out? Because they're not going to do it on their own. So I think if it gets to the point where this is built into browsers, that would be a good thing.
And I don't. As far as I know, I think Have I Been Pwned? I think they sold the service actually to a security firm. It used to be run by one guy, and then he sold it. So every time I talk to a security professional, they always say, check if your password has been compromised using Have I Been Pwned? And I, just more and more, I'm concerned about the, I guess, kind of, not the authenticity of Have I Been Pwned, but the non-marketing. And by the way, it's Troy Hunt was the one guy who started, and I think he's trying to sell it. I know that he works off donations, he doesn't actually. I think
Computer America should buy it.
That's no, thank you. But I'm hoping that Have I Been Pwned stays a completely independent organization.
Yeah, it's one of those running jokes that and one of the things you can do there, by the way, you don't have to type in your password. You could just look up your email address, and it'll give you a list of services that your email address is associated with that have been hacked. So that's one way you can.
What was the farthest back account that got compromised for me? And they actually listed it. 13 years ago, my Neopets account was compromised recently. And let me tell you.
Neopets, what are you doing?
Hey, I was 13. It was all the rage. Or that's 15 years ago.
I'm criticizing them. They should have top security for that kind of site.
I know, but they don't. So my Neopets account, I assume it's dead and lost. All my Neopets are dead. That's the only thing I can assume. But there you go. So we have time for just to introduce one more story real quick, and I'm trying to find one here that would be pretty quick. And, actually, just really, really quickly, hey, Mike, how about really quickly? Why don't you explain net neutrality in 1 minute? But no. You know what? How about this? We're going to include all these links that Mike sent over in the show notes. If you want to check them out after the show, feel free to. Some of the other topics.
I was worried today that we were going to have nothing to talk about. I was like, man, there's only this handful of stories. I don't know what we're going to talk about.
I think we got it covered. But so some of the other articles we didn't get to, but we're going to have links to include net neutrality court ruling, which saying that states can set their own rules, which is a huge controversy with California and the like. It's a big mess. This one about Home Depot and Lowe's are secretly using facial recognition to track customers' movements. And by the way, they're not just using facial recognition. They're also using your cell phone. They have special towers set up that will ping your phone and actually track you as you move throughout stores. It's not just Home Depot and Lowe's, but it's also shopping malls, all other kinds of stores. Trust me, every company does it. Don't worry about it. Worry about it. I should say worry about it. U.S. hospitals ransomware, of course, and of course the U.S. gets its first electric-only gas station, which should be an electric station, I guess. But there you go.
Good job. We hit them all. I think we did good. Well done.
I don't know about that. But I will say, in like this last 30 seconds, Mike, why don't you go ahead and tell the nice folks about techguy.org.
Yeah, sure. Check out techguy.org. That's my website. We've been running it now since 1996, not since 2000, since 1996. And it's a free site supported by volunteers and donations and the advertisements you see there. There's nothing for you to buy or pay for. And just go in there, post a question, and one of the volunteers will try to help you out. And while you're there, chances are you'll find someone else you can help out as well. So it's all sorts of Windows tech support, Android help, Mac stuff, web development, whatever you're interested in. There's someone else there who is interested as well. And just one of the oldest tech support forums on the internet.
Absolutely. And hey, love to hear it. Everyone, links to that and more at Computer America. Mike, until next month, thank you so much. And we'll catch you then. Everyone, have a great day. Thank you so much for tuning in. Bye, everyone.